Welcome everyone to the first Torah study of the 2018 spring semester. Today I wanted to speak about gossip, slander, and online reviewing, the Torah's view on forbidden speech in the 21st century. So 2 comments before I begin. One is, I have no answers, which is normally not a nice way, the correct way to start, saying I don't know the answer. But I think, if we're honest with ourselves, I don't think anyone has the answer. In the same way, that in every generation, we have to realize that new technology and new challenges challenge us how we think, legally, and how we think ethically. I sort of also feel like the famous story in the Talmud, where the man came to Hillel and said, "Teach me all of the Torah while I'm standing on 1 foot." As I was preparing the sources, and I realized you could speak for 10 hours, and I'm trying to condense it all into, half an hour. So, so all of our attention spans will, and my attention span. So there are handouts over there, if everyone got. We're going to try to go through it, but I first want to pose the questions. Before we begin, I didn't write the questions down, or I didn't... There
are 4 questions?
No, there's many questions. You're driving on the highway, or driving here today, like myself. You're driving down Peninsula, and the truck in front of you says, "How's my driving?" It's got a number there. We've all seen that, right? And he's just annoying. He's going so slow. He's not doing anything dangerous, just going slow. Would you call and say, by the way, truck A328, I'm not telling you who that is, right? A328 is he's not a good driver. Now, obviously, most of us are not that malicious, and we're not going to, again, we can't, it's true. It's annoying. Now, if he was doing something very dangerous, I imagine you would want to answer. That's another question, right? You call up Amazon, you got something from Amazon, you missed something from Amazon, and you call up and you say, I have this problem. The guy on the phone sort of takes care of it, not so great. The minute you hang up with him, you get an email from Amazon, obviously. How was your conversation with that person, right? You say, rate it, 3 stars, 4 stars. What would you say, right? And now Amazon's going to, his boss is going to look at that quote. And it's true. Again, we're not talking about slander or libel. We're talking about true things. You go to a new restaurant that opens, and it's a busy night, and the waitress was a little harried. Wasn't the greatest experience you've ever had. The food was also not bad, not as great as you expected. What do you write on Yelp? What do you write on Google? Do you write? Or any other 4, right? Or you take a picture of, a lot of people take pictures, and we go to restaurants, and then people just take pictures of every course, right? Some people do that here. And then, like, your friends say, "So how was that steak?" Could have been better. So these are all, I think, things that we today experience. To quote Jeff Bezos, we are now in the world 2.0. Now, what is world 2.0? Is that all the information is out there. And now you just have to find it. And what everyone looks to do and likes to do is to get as much information as possible. So the goal, and as I was telling Professor Rafel, right, if you have a business, you have to make sure you have as many reviews, which are 5 or 4 stars, possible. Right? That's what you need to do today. Reviews is how Google ranks you, is how the world looks at you. So how do we deal with the fact that we are expected to be part of society and let everyone know what we think, at the same time deal with the Torah's concept of speech, both from a legal and an ethical standpoint? So on the first page, I have the famous verses from the Psalms, from Tehillim. That's 34, 13, 15. "Who is the man who is eager for life, who desires years of good fortune? Guard your tongue from evil, your lips from deceitful speech. Shun evil and do good. Seek amity and pursue it." And again, from Proverbs, "He who guards his mouth and tongue guards himself from trouble." That's great. And we know there's a famous story in the Talmud that the Talmud relates that Rabbi Alexander would proclaim in public, in the manner of merchants selling wares. Who desires life? He would go around as a barker. Who desires life? Everyone said, "Oh, we want life." And he would say, "Oh, I got this great verse from you from Zom. It says, if you desire life, keep your tongue from evil." Okay, so if let's say if you want to say, okay, so the quick and short answer is, why am I even talking? Everyone, never review, never say anything. Keep quiet. But two problems with that. If you take a look at the source in Leviticus, I'm going to read it in Hebrew because the English it's a hard time translating this one word. It says, Lo telech rachil ba'amecha, lo ta'amol adam re'ech ani Hashem. So the way this translation that I've been using from Sephariah is, do not deal basely with your countrymen. Now the word rachil is related to the word of a peddler. That's how, again, many of the medieval commentators have many different translations of the word, but it means someone who goes from person to person, who whether he's a peddler, whether he's just someone who relates stories, or he gossiper. There are many different translations depending on how you translate. And that's where we get the basic commandment in the Torah, lo telech, do not be someone who tells stories, a gossiper, or deal basely, which is, I guess, the translation here. But you'll notice right away in the same verse, it says, Lo ta'amod adam re'echa, do not stand by on the blood of your fellow person. And everyone, and the Chavetz Chaim, and all commentators make the point. It says, being quiet is not an option in many, many cases. If you see the guy in front of you is swerving and driving erratically, you have to say something. If you know information that will help someone or prevent harm, you have to say something. There are many, many situations. If you are served food that is spoiled, maybe you have to say something. Maybe report it. We had, I did want to mention this at the beginning, that we here at the Law Center lost Beth Mobley, and who always was such a participant in these Torah studies, but also always such a great voice of someone to sound off, and who I personally miss, and I just wanted to mention her name, and her memory should be a blessing. I was one of her family members who were here on Monday, or an acquaintance, works for the Board of Health and does a food inspection in Nassau County. And so we were talking about what it's like in certain establishments that where I eat, right? Yeah, and we're talking about how well do they refrigerate their soup or heat their soup up? It's something I would love to know always. Where not to buy soup, or to buy soup. So yes, he's a health inspector. But now, when you have a soup that's off one day, are you going to put it on there? People are entitled to a bad day. Or they're not entitled to a bad day. This way, maybe you'll say that if everyone would comment, everyone would be on their game, and everyone would be on their toes at all times, that only hire the best waiters or waitresses, that only hire the best chefs, and everyone would do everything perfect all the time. If we all said something, we'd have a utopian society, which is, of course, not true. But maybe you'll make that case. So that's all the commentators point out, the juxtaposition of don't be a gossip monger and don't stand idly by means that you can't just be silent. So now we have to figure out, okay, because we are enjoined to be silent and we are enjoined to talk, we got to figure it out. If you take a look, I did a little bit out of order. Sorry. I put it on the bottom of page 3. I had a reason, but if you take a look from Ecclesiastes, and you have this juxtaposition often from chapter 7, 16, 17. So don't overdo goodness, and don't act the wise man to excess, or you may be dumbfounded. Don't overdo wickedness, and don't be a fool, or you may die before your time. So King Solomon in Ecclesiastes points out the same problem. You think you go one way and you'll be perfect, you'll be okay. You're too good? Yeah, it's a problem. You're too wicked? Yeah, it's a problem. So you see that there is no way out. There's no easy answer. That's why I said that I wish I had an easy answer. I can get up here and say, like Hillel told, right? Don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself. Call it a day. But you can't do that, right? So what do you do? So that is what I want to think together about. That is, and so let's take if you turn to page 2, there are 2 pieces of Talmud that I wanted to learn together. And again, there is a question of who does comment. But there's another aspect to this. If you take a look here, which brings it home, in the West, which is Palestine, because again, the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud was written in Babylonia, Iraq, so West, whenever the Talmud refers to West, it's Israel, Palestine. they say their talk about third person kills three persons. It means three evils are done when you have gossip or talking. He who tells the slander, he who accepts it, and about whom it is told. So here you have a very interesting adding to the void that not only, I won't review, but we read it. And there's a the minute you start reading something, and the minute you start, right, if you're looking for a place to eat in the city, right, like myself on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and you see the reviews, and the one place has one negative review, you're again, whether I believe it or not, it's still it has an effect. So that's what the Talmud said this to, about 1800 years ago, that listening, even just listening to, if you're accepting for sure, to evil speech has an effect on you. So it's not enough you can say, okay, I won't comment, I'll never comment, but you're going to read it. You're not going to stay off the internet, I imagine, right? So now what do? We have a problem. How do we deal in a society where everyone is encouraged? And it's weird. So my wife recently opened a business. So you go to Google My Business, you start, you claim a business, and anyone can edit it. So let's say you're a competitor with my wife, you would go ahead and change your hours. You can do that. Google lets any Tom, Dick, and Harry, besides write a review, edit someone else's page. So you ask Google, that just doesn't make sense. Really? Yeah. Why would Google let you do that? So they suggest hours. You ever get that? You don't get that? You get it all the time, right? You see that? Suggest hours. Because the popular thinking is that crowd sourcing or crowd actions will lead to the truth. And that's just, it's a way of thinking that is popular, but it seemingly runs against everything that,
Not a website, right? A website.
No, you can't write. No, you can't write. Correct. But if you'll Google, comprehensive audiology, and it says closed, you figure, I'm sure it's closed Sundays. No, we're closed Saturdays. We're not closed Sundays. But you can just assume, and if you're a competitor, put in crazy hours. So, and again, Google will officially look it over, but it's just an algorithm. It's most of the time not a human being. So.
And there's no one to supervise whether these changes are
correct.
valid.
It's an algorithm. It's not a human being.
Well, who writes the algorithm?
Some 20-year-old in Silicon Valley. Your son-in-law. There you go. But if you look at the SEO sites, which is the search engine optimization sites, this is what they deal with: how to figure out what someone at Google did, right? What their algorithm is. So we're living in an age where everyone has a say, and it impacts everyone in many ways. So if you continue with that first piece of Talmud, it says, what constitutes evil speech? Rabbi said, for example, to say there's a fire in the house of so-and-so. Said Abaye, what did he do? He just gave information. So there seems to be a debate. In other words, what is the line between information and information that is, again, slander has very legal meanings. We're not talking about it in the legal sense, we're talking about it in the ethical sense. So rather, when he utters that in a slanderous fashion, where else should there be a fire, if not in the house of so-and-so? In other words, when you're saying, oh, there's a fire there because, so it seems that there's a difference between when you just give information and when you have intent. And this is where the question that I guess I'm going to preempt my conclusion. That is, we all understand that if you have a malicious intent, you're not a good person. And we understand that if you have a positive intent to benefit someone, you're a good person. The real question that hasn't been addressed in any forum, in any book, in any writing is, what if you have no intent? You just want to pass on information that you happen to have. Would you say that's more? Again, there's no intent. You're just saying, I had lunch there. This is the picture of my food. It was a sloppy. Again, you're not there. This is how a presentation. I've been to many restaurants. This was a sloppy presentation. It's not bad. It's not good. It's true. You have the picture to prove it. What would you say about that? So that is, I think, where the question is for ourselves. And now the next verse, which also applies to judges and maybe even to lawyers, it's from Sanhedrin. The sages taught, from where is it derived that when the judges leave, he should not say, I deemed you exempt. My colleagues deemed you liable. What can I do? As my colleagues outnumbered me. In other words, according to Jewish law, most courts are a court of 3 or higher, but minimal 3. So 7, 20, you go up to all the way up to 71, the main court in the temple, but every court is minimal 3. So it's always majority rules. So in other words, we don't believe in dissenting opinions. You know, like in the Supreme Court, even if you're wrong, you get to write whatever you want and rip whoever, you know, if you're these days a liberal member of the court, you get to lace into all the people you don't like. So here it says in the Talmud is that that's not such an acceptable practice. That at least between two people, when Joe and Bob are having a fight and the court finds for Joe, the dissenting judge can't go to Bob and says, listen, I think you're right, but I was outvoted, I'm really sorry. You can't do that. The verse states, you shall not go as a talebearer among your people. And it says, one who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets. The Talmud tells a story. There was a certain student about whom a rumor emerged that he revealed a statement that was stated in the study hall that should have been kept secret. I mean, there was a story in the Talmud, and they were debating an issue, and they concluded X. But some guy went after us and said, listen, really, I think we should have been Y, but listen, I was outvoted. And the rumor emerged 22 years after the time the statement was revealed. Rav Ami kicked him out, removed him from the study hall as a punishment. 22 years later, he just said, by the way, I was of the dissenting opinion. Out. You're done. We can't have that. That's a talebearer. So you see, again, he told the truth. It had no ramification. He was just saying, my opinion was that you were correct. So what is the Talmud teaching us here? Right? I think it's a very, why can't we say dissent, right? We live with dissenting opinions. Yes, Professor.
And also, but on the other hand, I mean, I'm going to throw this other hand at the same hand, but it didn't say that he actually revealed a statement. It's saying a rumor emerged that he revealed a statement. So they're also saying listen to rumors. So it's kind of
yeah. So I'm assuming. I'm going to assume right. No. The rumor that was said was emerged. Not that the rumor that he said it. They know he did it. It was that which was a secret became revealed 22 years later. So a 22-year-old secret finally got revealed, and which was true, wasn't. So the Talmud doesn't want to hear dissenting opinions, which is not true because we know that in the courts, right? The way the procedure worked was that you went, what do you say? What do you say? And not only that, we encourage dissenting opinions because we always started from the least ranking members of the court, so that because if the head of the court spoke first, everyone would be like, oh, I'm not going to say my opinion now. So we encourage dissenting opinions, and all the more so. The famous piece of Talmud, which I did not have here. There's a famous group, the first group of academies in the first century of the Talmud, first century BCE, Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, and the Beit Hillel, we followed their opinion because they encouraged and always repeated the opinions of Beit Shammai. They argued for 3 years, the Talmud tells us in Eruvin, and yet they always encouraged the other opinions to repeat the other opinions. So we're all for, but when you have two people who are fighting, and that the court has an opinion, and that's what's going to be the law, you can't go to the guy and say, listen, you were really right, but you just lost. So you see here that there's that tension of it's true, it's irrelevant. When do you get to say something that again has no ramifications here? The court still the court. So that's what I felt was a very interesting. Again, as I said, source material primary source material is in a way lacking that deals with these questions. But this is I think what we would study this in depth and figuring out what exactly is the problem. But I want to just go continue on. So in the code, in that Mishnah Torah, Maimonides code of human dispositions, he lists many categories, and this has been a debate since he wrote it, in the 1100s. This has been a debate how to basically understand what the different categories are. So he tells, he who bears tales against his fellow violates a prohibitive commandment. Those shall not go as a talebearer among the people. That's from Leviticus 19:16. So who is such a person? So he has 4 different categories. One who loads himself up with matters and goes from this one to that one, saying to each, such did that man say, that I have heard, even though it be true because he destroys the universe. So seemingly, Maimonides is saying that someone whose job is to go repeat to everyone what everyone said about them, that was what the Torah prohibited. So that seems to, now, many read this as, I heard about you and what he said about you, and I heard about you what she said about you. So in other words, you're actively fostering negative comments. it doesn't say the word negative here. But that's he leads to the next one. There is a yet extremely grosser iniquity, which too is included, and that is the evil tongue one who spreads scandal, even though he'd be telling the truth. So it's hard. Many commentators try to figure out which what are the different categories between scandal, pardon me, and just going around telling everyone. But most assume, and if you look at most of the later commentaries, most assume we're talking about negative stuff. You go around telling what everyone's negative details. And of course, if you're lying, that's the worst. And the owner of an evil tongue, he sits a company, relates things, thus and thus did certain party, thus and thus were his parents, meaning people who, I guess we call gossip. I know there's a lot of sites that do that, but those would be for sure in Maimonides' prohibition. And it continues on the next page, top of page 3. Regardless of whether the slander is spoken in the presence of his fellow or in his absence, or if the slander spread from mouth to mouth, causes harm to his fellow, to his body or property, right? That's the evil tongue. But then there is this one caveat which sort of is hard to understand. If such evil be spoken in the presence of 3 persons, the matter is thereby considered public. Thus, if one of the 3 heard it repeated to others, no sin of an evil tongue is found therein, provided that the retelling had no intention to spread the rumor. So there is a concept in that when something's public, you're not a gossip bearer if you say it. Now, that is very hard for us to understand today. Everything's public. And does that mean, we all know what's going on in the White House more than I know going in my own house. So everyone knows about everything at all times. So what does it mean? That all public knowledge, you can just repeat all rumors and all gossip because everyone knows about it? Seems hard to understand. Could be this is referring to a time when there was only 100 of us in the shtetl. And if 3 people do it, everyone do it. Does it mean you're allowed to? Does it mean you can? So again, the laws of forbidden speech, or in Hebrew, Loshon Hora, evil speech, are quite complex. But this permission, this question of when there's knowledge and public knowledge, it's hard to understand or how to apply it today. I want to just go to, so now, one of the answers would only read, when you go to Amazon, you have a choice to click on the 5-star reviews, the 4-star, or the 1-star reviews. I don't know, right? And it says, this everyone found helpful. This no one found helpful. So you say, okay, I'll just, I'll give only praise. I'll be the reviewer, only 5 stars. Great. As Rav Dimi, the brother of Safra, teaches the next piece from the Talmud, a person should never speak the praise of another, as out of the praise spoken about him, someone may come to speak to his detriment. So I know there's professors in the room, and I don't know if they're aware that there's a site called Rate My Professor. I'm sure you're all aware.
Is it what?
A site that calls Rate My Professor.
Yeah.
So let's say I want to go. I'm only going to say nice things. So I'll go on Professor Hutz, or I can say Smith. Is there Professor Smith? No, Professor Smith. Professor Smith, the greatest. I learned so much. That sounds like a good thing. Rav Dimi says in Bava Batra, don't do that. Because it's gonna, my fellow student who also did well said, yeah, but he's not as entertaining as Professor Phil like, or it was much harder than don't take him for crim law or her for crim law. Take someone else because it's a harder test, or right? None of us here would do such a thing. I'm just saying that those smiles are yes, sir.
Isn't there an issue that even if you say that so and so is great, that could be misleading because someone else, what one person thinks is great, isn't great to another person?
So the way the Talmud says it, you're asking is if I say he's great because he's X. The Talmud here says just that when you bring a person up, it might lead to a detriment. Okay, it's not only because that you might have a misunderstanding, even if you're true, but when we start speaking about people, then everyone will feel the need to say, "You're right, but I think my professor was better." And then you've already entered the question of slander, Lashon Hara. And here you have the famous statement: there are 3 sins from which a person is not spared each day. It means there are 3 things that basically we all fall into each day. Having sinful thoughts. Okay, we can't stop how we think. Committing sins considered deliberation and prayer. Prayer is to have full concentration when we pray. We all know our mind wanders, right? And you say, God, could I be successful? Then you're automatically daydreaming what success looks like. So, So prayer is hard, and sinful thoughts, and uttering malicious speech. So the Talmud asks, can it enter your mind that a person, you can't go a day without being malicious? We're human, but we're not that bad. Says the Gemara, no, he was referring to uttering a hint. That means, yeah, you can go a day without saying something nasty, but even when you say something nice, there's something there. There's a hint. You can't get away from it. That's who we are. And I know myself that giving when someone praises another person, it's there. You want to just yeah, but right. This is the best student ever. I've had better students, right? Right? Top of the class. Yeah, top of this class, right? And so we can do this all day. So you see that there's that Talmud. So take a look. If you would just stop the Talmud. Sorry, if you would just stop here and say, okay, what are we gonna do? We're stuck. We can't sit idly by. We can't do nothing. We can't just praise. We can't. Whatever we say is no good. I mean, we're really, and again, our society, we're in trouble. What do you do? I don't know.
Regarding
Yeah. Yeah.
talks about praising somebody else.
Yes.
So I think in the Rambam's formulation, he talks about it in terms of praising. I don't know if you have it here, but it is in Hilchos.
Yeah. It's in the next piece. I didn't.
To their enemy.
Correct. Because that.
will encourage them to say.
So that for sure you're right. When you correct.
This is the worst, and then if so, is that how he's learning this tomorrow?
He learns that Gemara that way. But if it's seemingly problematic because if the continuation is not the continuation of the Talmud here, it seems to imply that even if you're not malicious intentionally, but it's in a hint. So yes, Maimonides does learn that praising someone to an enemy is like asking, you're asking for it. But the way that Gemara seems that the Chavetz Chaim sees that it's always because you're gonna say something, right? And I'm not going to say that I worked on this because I can't say that because it's not true. But if you're aware of your own, I guess part of this is part of what I hope for today. I guess begin the conversation, and all of us who are interested in bettering ourselves, of making us more aware of what we do and our own. I don't want to say prejudices, but our own intentions when we speak, and that so many times it's always. I'll say it like this. And this is really, for some reason, and I think we as humans, or we as thinking beings, are always evaluating. We're always giving weight. We're always, judging one thing against another. Everything. We don't nothing's in just the thing itself. It's always in the broader picture, always. And part of Loshon Hora is, can you relay information without your evaluation there? Can you say something, a fact, without it being with your evaluation? And I think that would be the determining factor, or that would be the goal. Like when you go to a restaurant, can you just say just what you ate and tell it over how the presentation without your evaluation? And I think it's very difficult.
Well, any student of psychology would say no.
Right. And so is the prohibition of slander speech saying is so now I have a little cute cartoon before we go into the laws. One of our customers exposed a security risk with our latest software release. Oh, good gracious. Did they tweet the hack to every teenager on the Twitter? Did they expose the weakness on the YouTube? Is our stock price plummeting? Are we going to get fired? No, they sent us a suggestion fix via private message at our forum. Oh, that was nice. But unfortunately, most people will take the middle box of the cartoon. If there's something wrong, right? What's your first reaction? If you knew something about something, what was your first reaction? To tell that person, go over privately, or to exploit it? There you go. And again, it's true. It's not you're not malicious. I guess what? Yeah, or okay. So trolling. Is that how you say it? That means what? Like being a troll? Oh. Is that what it's for? Okay. So, all laws of slander all circle back to a rabbi, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, or Pupko, his last name, Chavetz Chaim, known from his book. He printed a book in the 1800s called Chavetz Chaim, which means Desire's Life, based on that first verse. And he basically transformed or wrote, for one of the only times, a legal work on an ethical issue. The Musar movement, started by Rabbi Israel Slander in the early 1800s, encouraged people to take ethics, or what we call Musar, ethical thinking and make it legal. That means there was always throughout history legal works, right? Laws that had every aspect of Judaism, but there were no books written taking and trying to figure out how to legalize ethics. So the Chafetz Chaim is one of the only books he was a student of Rabbi Israel Slander, and he took the charge and he made a very large book with a lot of details on this question of slander, this question of forbidden tongue. And again, most of it is an ethical question or a proper action question, a moral question than an actual legal question. As you would say, it's not actionable, right? In 90% of the times. So again, it's a long book and the translations are not great, but I have a few, I put too much here, I don't want to keep everyone too long. But if he lists here, and then on page 4, he lists 5, well, I'll read it. If one sees that his friend wishes to enter into a partnership with someone, and he feels though he will be harmed by this, he must tell him. So again, you can't, right, hold back to rescue him from that harm. But the following 5 conditions must be met, and I bolded them in A, B, C, D, and E. You can't immediately conclude that harm will result. You can't just assume, basically. You have to be certain that the harm will happen. B, can't exaggerate the matter. C, your intent must be for benefit. It's not that you don't like the guy or something like that. D, if you can make that benefit happen in some other way, that's what the cartoon is for. And E, it only is that you have to prevent damage from happening, but not to cause harm to the person. So if you have John and Bob again, and Bob wants to be John's partner, and you were John's partner in the past, and it turned out pretty bad, you are allowed to tell Bob, providing you meet these 5 conditions. But take a look at, he gives an example on the top of the next page. I bolded the whole thing, 5. And this is actually, it was relevant then and it's relevant now. If he sees that a man wants to enter a store to buy something, and he knows that man to be rather naive, we would say gullible, and he knows the shopkeeper to be a man whose entire yearning is to ensnare a man like that and deceive him. Right? When you go on Amazon and there are 10 people selling the same product, and we know some of them are, we've all encountered, those bad sellers on Amazon, whoever they may be. Whether in matters of weights and measures or in bargaining, we don't have that, but we have false advertisement and et cetera, et cetera. He must tell him about that store and warn him not to enter it, even if he has already agreed with the storekeeper to buy from him. How much more so if he sees clearly that the storekeeper wishes to deceive him as to the merchandise, to convince him that he's buying the very best quality when he knows this to be false, right? We know that on Amazon, people pay for reviews. I'm impressed. If people would put energy into good things and not to scamming other people, we'd have a wonderful world. So lately, I don't know about you, when you read reviews, you always look for the review from a certified buyer, correct? So now, what they do is, how do you become a certified buyer? You buy it. So what they do is people buy with a random, like a gift card, and ship it to random people. And then I become a certified buyer of my own goods, and then I can give a review. So I don't know how they get these places, but certain people have reported, this has been the news the past 2 weeks, that wherever they are, they're getting Amazon packages daily. And they call Amazon, they said, we've never ordered anything. And Amazon said, no, it's legit. We have a real person who put in that address, but we never ordered it. So they are the dumping ground for people who are ordering their own products, sending it to a random person, and then giving a review to their own products from a certified buyer. So there's no limit to how smart you can be if you want to scam people. So that's what happens here, or in the area of weights and measures, or in the purchase price. In such cases, he must certainly tell him, so that he not come to be deceived. But he must take great care that the aforementioned conditions are satisfied. Now, there's a piece here in a footnote that I didn't have in English, so I didn't put here. And the question that he asks, and I'm going to leave it at that. It's late, but there's a lot more here. Again, in the other parts of the book, he lists seven conditions. That's the next chapter, that you have to see it yourself, you have to know how to determine it, you have to try to reprove the guy, you can't exaggerate. It's the basic same principles. But he asked a question. Now this is actual, in Jewish law, you may not overcharge more than a sixth. So gouging, right? So in gouging, I don't know what the law is here, but according to the Talmud, it's a sixth. So if something is being sold for $60, you can charge up to $70 if that's the price, or so anything which is above 70, it's considered 60 to 70 is acceptable. Anything above $70, a tenth. I'm sorry, no, that was a tenth. No, 60. Sorry, a sixth. I said a sixth, so which is $10 here. A sixth, $60. So something 60, a sixth is $10. Anything above 70. Till 70 is okay. Above 70, it's considered null and void. So you can always go back and say, you enforce it, say, I want my money back. Yeah, you charge me too much. Up to a sixth is acceptable. So what if your guy, a smart guy, he knows the price is 60, he charges everyone $69.99, right? That's how you make. That's if you're a sharp businessman. So am I allowed? And this is what the Chofetz Chaim debates. He writes this in a footnote. Am I allowed to say something in that case? On one hand, what he's doing is legal. And if you found that, you overcharged me, he says, no, I didn't. I'm allowed up to 70, but it's not nice. It's not the right thing to do. He's taking advantage. Would you be allowed to report that? Because on one hand, it's not an actionable crime. He's not doing something wrong. On the other hand, he's doing something wrong. And he leaves it as an open question. And I think that is, we would have to answer that question, because that is what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with, in most cases, we're not dealing with something that's inherently wrong. Just the waitress had a bad day. She was mean to me, legitimately. But everyone's allowed to have a bad day. Not everyone's perfect. Right? All these things that we deal with, on one hand, they're not bad, they're not good, they're just passing out information that happened, but has some effect. I don't have the answers, like I said from the beginning, but I think that if we want to take and I personally think that someone should write this book. I don't know who, but there needs to be that to take all these scenarios that we all encounter in our society today and try to at least give guidance and advice how to deal with it. So I hope today we just started the conversation. We've all become more aware, and I thank you for joining us. And any questions? No? Good. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.